Well, we begin with what you watched last night. President Biden's not so unifying speech, despite promises to unify America when he took the oath of office. The president, in front of what critics describe as a dark and angry red background, used a national address. That's right, you paid for it with your taxpayer dime. He used his national address last night to portray half of Americans as threats to the very foundation of our country. Watch.
There's no question that the Republican Party today is dominated, driven, and intimidated by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans. And that is a threat to this country. They embrace anger. They thrive on chaos. They live not in the light of truth, but in the shadow of lies. MAGA Republicans look at America and see carnage and darkness and despair. They spread fear and lies. That's why respected conservatives like Federal Circuit Court Judge called Trump an extreme.
I didn't even hear the
quote.
He found one judge that was willing to like call out MAGA.
But in the very same breath, he tried to be Mr. Unity.
An American president, not a president of red America, blue America, but of all America. That's why tonight I'm asking our nation to come together, unite. We are still an America that believes in honesty and decency and respect for others. Look, I know politics can be fierce and mean and nasty in America. I get it. Democracy begins and will be preserved in we, the people's habits of the heart. Empathy that fuels democracy. The willingness to see each other not as enemies, but as fellow Americans.
I could not believe what I watched last night, Tommy. The best description that came to mind was split personality disorder. Because on one hand, you had Biden saying half the country's a threat to democracy, we're a clear and present danger to society, but let's unite and let's not demonize our fellow man. Which Biden is real, one or two? I don't know.
Well, what I heard is let's unite against people that support Donald Trump, which is 74 million plus Americans, probably many more after last night, certainly dusting off the MAGA hat. But I just want to explain to those that aren't familiar of what a MAGA Republican is, because I don't think the Democrats, I don't think Joe Biden has it straight.
I don't either.
A MAGA Republican is not an extremist. It's not somebody who denies elections. A MAGA Republican is somebody who loves their country, loves their family, wants their country to come first, loves law enforcement, loves the military. It's those forgotten Americans in the heartland of our country that work hard every single day. Don't ask for much from anybody, do their thing, want the government to be as small as possible, and they united behind Donald Trump because he brought that message. That's what a MAGA Republican is, and the fact that our sitting president used our tax dollars to stand there and say what he said, flanked by Marines no less, who also love their country, was disgusting to so many Americans on the right and on the left. I truly believe that.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Sean, I couldn't help but think of the faces of thousands of people I've seen across the country, to Tommy's point, who are MAGA Republicans. There are millions. I've personally met probably thousands. A veteran who told me with tears in his eye that, in fact, his life was saved because he called the veteran hotline and got help. And it was Laura Trump, actually, who picked up the phone and personally reached out to him. I thought about a young man in Michigan, again, tears in his eyes, because the First Step Act got him out of a nonviolent, overly burdensome sentence. And he was back with his family that Christmas. I mean, I thought of a mom who said, my son waited in line the right way to become an immigrant to this country, to become a citizen. And she was so proud to go to a Trump rally. That's who I thought about. Attack the candidate all you want, but do not dare attack the men and women, the veterans who have served this country and put their lives on the line and support the Constitution.
This is flag, faith, freedom. That's what MAGA Republicans believe in. And I've met thousands of them. I've been to Trump rallies. Some of the best people you meet in this country, nonviolent, friendly, happy, pro-American people. And this was a grossly, political event that was billed as an official event, which is just, sick all the way around, and to the point of the Marine standing behind him, this eerie red backdrop.
I know, it really does make you sick.
He looked like the villain, but this is what's happening here. You have Joe Biden classifying 74 million Americans as extremists, as fascists. When you have extremists,
probably
fascists,
like closer
terrorists,
to 90.
that are half of America, you have to use every resource available to take them out, whether it's the government, big tech, media, intelligence, law enforcement. They need to be rooted out of this society. And so Joe Biden is, I think, setting the stage for a war against half of America, because if you want to fundamentally transform America, you can't have 74 million people standing in your way. And I think this is the predicate to making sure they have the backdrop to go after every single Trump supporter.
Speaking of backdrops, you mentioned it. The hellish blood red backdrop, Dr. Sapphire. I saw Scott Walker, former governor, put up this tweet. You know, it was the inauguration day Biden, the Mr. Unity Biden, you know, how it went versus how it's going with the blood red background. Likewise, Dark Brandon, who was supposed to be a superhero, is now very villainous. When he had those, we'll pop him up.
Yeah, I also thought that the background was pretty poor optics. It definitely was in line with their dark brain, you know. I mean, just it's too much. But the president missed the opportunity to be honest with the American people last night. If he wanted to speak out against extremism, he would have called out extremism on both sides of the aisle and not just focus on the Republican side of it.
I know. I mean,
he
heard
was
that
talking
too.
about how he was upset that FBI members who raided Mar-a-Lago, that they were getting personal threats of violence against them, but he was silent when the sports justices were having murder accusation or murder threats against them. And so he was silent there, and he kept saying democracy is under threat. And he's absolutely right. Good opportunity to talk about the fact that it's becoming obvious his administration, the DOJ, Surgeon General, they've been working in cahoots with social media to silence opinions that haven't been in line with them. And so on what he did was he made Donald Trump and his supporters public enemy number one. And I will say that, yes, Donald Trump is a threat to President Biden, but not the way that he wanted to portray it. He's a threat to him having a second term, whether Donald Trump wants to run himself or is going to support another Republican to. That is the biggest threat that Donald Trump has to President Biden, because his policies.
Everything she said was true,
Cheryl,
despite the weird
Dana Perino made a great point this morning. If the fascist MAGA Republicans are such a threat, then why do Democrats fund them in primaries to the tune of $43 million, according to Newsweek? This tweet out from Natalie Allison of Politico. There's now a McConnell-Schumer super PAC ad war over the next week and a half in the New Hampshire Republican primary race. And he points out the Democrats have put $3.1 million in to try to get an ultra MAGA candidate elected. So if they're such a threat, you're funding them.
Well, they're hoping that they can defeat said candidate. But look, last night was overtly political. The good news is that none of the major networks took the comments from the president. Only 2 cable networks took those comments because they knew that this had nothing to do with democracy or the spirit of America,
I didn't know
which is what they billed it as. And the cleanup on aisle 5 has already begun from Karine Jean-Pierre, the press secretary. Now she's trying to say, and she was on the podium saying this, well, we're more targeting those that are MAGA candidates or the office holders. We're targeting those in Congress, those with power. They know that they offended half the country. And let's also be clear here. Not all Republicans are Trump backers or Trump believers, but they are card-carrying members of the Republican Party. Maybe they like the policies of Donald Trump. Maybe they didn't like the man so much, but you're taking that group as well, and you're galvanizing them. So what they're doing is going to have the exact opposite, I think, of what they're planning to do.
Yeah, but Tom, I would just make the point really quick. It's like 95% of the party that supports Trump or DeSantis. These are MAGA candidates. This is not a party of establishment figures.
This is not the squishy Republican Party. This is the MAGA wing. And what does MAGA is Make America Great Again? So he's not saying specifically Donald Trump. He's saying MAGA, and MAGA is the policies that put America first, the American worker first, American manufacturing first. We're going to look out for our people first. It's the philosophy behind Donald Trump that he's attacking, not necessarily Donald Trump himself. And it's the people that you said can either support Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis.
Democrats don't take care of their own. They take care of everyone else first.
Our people.
Yeah, Pence. I mean, another great example, another top 3 contender who supports the Trump policies. Tommy, last word to you. I just wonder what those Marines were thinking, because they might have been mad.
For real.
They may have been. They likely were. Either way, they love their country, right? But let's just think about the imagery that portrayed. And if it were Donald Trump giving the same speech, how militant that looked, how intimidating that looked. To use those Marines as a political prop to make a political speech against half the country, not only inappropriate, but I would go as far as to say un-American. Shame on our president for doing that.
It was a sad moment, and I'm with you. I'm so glad the broadcast networks didn't take it. Or maybe I wish they
I
did.
didn't know that. That's fucking crazy. President gives a primetime address and none of the broadcast networks
restricts free speech online. That's next.
Wow, that's sad.
It really is. It's sort of like I almost sort of don't understand.
I think they're afraid of what he might say and how he drools on, so they rather not put it up there for the whole world to see.
They don't want to see. They don't want people to see that they're going after Republicans.
Yeah, could be. Any number of explanations are possible. It could also be the simplest explanation, the Occam's razor explanation, would just be that Joe Biden is a ratings nightmare. And that if you're concerned about ratings, you should not put Joe Biden on the screen. It could be something. It could be an explanation as simple as that. But both of what you said could be valid, totally. But the things that both of you said,
and it could be a combination of them all.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And it might not even just be one explanation. In fact, very few things do have just one explanation.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I don't. I of course don't know necessarily what Nicole Saphier is ever doing on any of these panels that don't like involve COVID specifically, because as Rob points out, she's a doctor. She's not like a political pundit or whatever. I guess she's trying to be, but she's a doctor. But I think her point, other than the weird pronunciation of extremism, was spot on. I think she made the point tying it to COVID, which, that's sort of her wheelhouse. It started there. It's like, oh, you're not wearing a mask. It's not that you just don't want to wear a mask. It's that you're an extremist. You're part of an ideology or whatever. It's like, what if I just don't like wearing masks? Like,
in my mind, it all started with Fauci. Fauci was the devil, and Trump should have never listened to him.
Yeah,
he caused Trump to lose the race.
I've agreed with that so many times. I really think
exactly.
I think you'd have to be kind of an idiot not to think that. And I realize that in saying what I just said, I've effectively called a few smart people. I've called a few smart people idiots. That I think you're being ignorant if you don't recognize that. Yeah, listening to Fauci was a huge detriment to the Trump presidency. But what's done is done. Fauci's retiring. Trump's learned his lesson. Trump's going to be very careful about hiring people for the interagency now. I think that's what they're afraid of. Now Trump knows that if he gets back in, they're all gone. Yeah. Trump knows where the deep staters are hidden. He really knows now, because he's had to deal with them like a den of venomous snakes. He's had to deal with them. And a lot of people have been talking about Schedule F, the means that Trump gave himself of being able to fire federal employees. Right before he left office, he made the new executive order about, Schedule F is a different employment schedule for federal employees. Trump created that. Biden immediately removed it upon taking office. But if Trump gets back in, that's going to be the first thing that he does is re-implement Schedule F.
Exactly.
And make it so that he can just fire everyone he wants to fire. The writing's on the wall for that. And that's why they're so panicked, is because
I hope if Trump gets back in, I hope he does to the FBI what Reagan did to the air traffic controllers. Get rid of them all. Make sure you got good new ones in the pipeline before you do.
Well, and organizational changes and stuff, like you can make reforms without firing people. First of all, that's the first thing I'll say. And then secondly, of course, if people need to get fired, they can get fired. Hopefully. Right.
Some will have to. If you think like Peter Strzok and those from the beginning that said they'll never let him in, people like that have to go.
Absolutely. And the good news is a bunch of them are already resigning. We just lost Tim Tebow the week before. So we'll see, but I agree. I think that's one of the things that a lot of people look forward to the most about potentially a second Trump term, other than the good economy and all that stuff.
Is America last night describing MAGA Republicans
really
as
simple way that you could fix
his
things
administration
in
is
the
now facing increased scrutiny
over
emails that appear to show an attempt to censor ideas on social media. The emails show direct coordination between high-ranking officials in the Biden administration.
Yeah, this is a big deal. This is illegal.
In an effort to police speech on their platforms.
The government
the new
cannot
emails
police
come
speech.
as a new lawsuit
Exactly.
claims a
But they don't. They always tell
the
private people to do it.
Secretly
but
communicating
if the government is telling the private people to do it,
private speech.
You see where I'm going.
New York Post writing this. State Attorney General Jeff Landry and his Missouri counterpart Eric Schmidt charged that dozens of federal officials across at least 11 federal agencies engaged in a massive, sprawling federal censorship enterprise with the intent and effect of pressuring social media platforms to censor and suppress private speech that federal officials disfavor. Cheryl, what is amazing to me is the scope of this. A dozen federal agencies, nearly 45 individuals that have been identified potentially by these attorneys general. It's a big operation to suppress Americans' voice.
Well, and I'm also surprised by, if you go into the communications, how quickly these social media companies and their officials responded to these government requests. You dig into that and it's, yep, we're on it. You want us to pull down that Instagram account of the fake Fauci account? Yep, we're on it right away. I mean, we're talking within seconds. They were responding to government emails. So I think I'm more disappointed in the technology companies in Facebook and Twitter. Well, Facebook owns Instagram and then also Twitter, because they were so quick to jump and collude with the Biden administration to suppress a lot of these things that were out there. Was there misinformation during COVID? We're talking specifically about COVID information that was put on social media platforms. Understood. Yes, there was a lot of fake information out there, but at the same time, this goes to a bigger concern that we have, and this is why Elon Musk wants to take over Twitter, or he did, because of what they've turned into, which is basically another arm of the Democratic Party.
That's right. I mean, you mentioned the Fauci example. That's a great one, Dr. Sapphire. I mean, New York Post says the relationship was so cozy that they give the date, July 20th, 2021, White House COVID-19 response team digital director Clark Humphrey received a response from Facebook in seconds, you said. In seconds, when he asked about getting a fake Dr. Anthony Fauci Instagram account taken. Hi there, any way we can get this pulled down? It's not actually one of ours. Yep, on it. The answer came back. I mean, just like that.
Just like that, Kaylee. And, first of all, they're saying that they want to move towards making sure that there's more trustworthy information on social media. Well, I'm sorry, but who gets to determine what that trustworthy information is? I mean, who is the elected supreme leader? Who decides that? Because I can tell you throughout the course of the pandemic, you had scientists, physicians, all reputable people, politicians who were being suspended, or their tweets or whatever posts being muted because it wasn't in line with the CDC. Let's fast forward to now when the CDC is like, sorry, we messed up on a lot of things. So we got a lot wrong. So all of those content warnings that you got and then you clicked on it for the real news, the trustworthy information, turned out to be false in itself. So at this point, the public health entities should not be appointed by the president. They should not be aligned with political affiliations, yet that is what has continued to do. CDC director, FDA director, all appointed by the president. And that has been a huge problem, what we have seen throughout the course of this pandemic. We need to do away with the political affiliations and make sure that when it comes to truth, it is representing of all opinions and actual truth, and not just the opinion of whatever political party is sitting in the White House.
Yes, Sean, we should have known this was happening. Let's rewind really quick to the podium at the White House, July 15th, 2021.
It's important to take faster action against harmful posts, and Facebook needs to move more quickly to remove harmful, violative posts.
I mean, this is arguably illegal for the government to strike.
I hear that.
First, I bet if you were the press secretary, had reached out to Facebook and said, hey, listen, take this down as false information, which you never would have done. But had you done that, they would have amplified that story to go, oh, we have to get this out more, right? Yep. Yeah. They're partnering. They're on the same ideological wavelength, big tech and the White House. My problem is we have a First Amendment that guarantees free speech. And the government can't suppress free speech. And so what the Constitution prohibits the government from doing, the government can't then just say, I'll hire an agent to do it for me. Right. The agent's bound by the same rules as the government. So this is completely illegal. And what's concerning is there should be no speech patrol. We should be able to have a debate through the course of history. People get things wrong. People say false things. And we believe that the American people are smart enough to decipher truth from falsehood, make decisions for ourselves. No one can censor this stuff. And that's what's sad for me is that we're, as a country, starting to say this is kind of normal. There should be an arbiter of truth. No, there shouldn't be. Let us decide for ourselves.
Yeah, that's right. That disinformation board, that was the part we remember that. But Tommy, they were apparently suggesting weekly meetings, these social media companies, on disinformation. I mean, to your point, this is not legal to suppress First Amendment rights.
Well, here's what happened. The Biden administration came in and big tech was like, yes, finally, we have the guys of the government to do what we've always wanted to do, and now we can do it with reckless abandon. I don't think any of us are surprised, to be quite honest with you, that this was happening. Any conservative that's been on any social media platform, I think we're very well aware of what's been going on. My question is, okay, now what? Where is the accountability? Does it change? Do we have a cleaning out of these big tech companies where they bring in some more conservative voices, or at least independent voices? Do we have the government admit they were doing this and admit they're going to stop doing it? No, we talk about it, we get outraged, and then a few months later we talk about it, we get outraged, and nothing changes. We need Republicans also to stand up in legislature, in Congress, and say, we need to be reforming some of this. Our Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn has done that on many occasions, but it's going to take a village of Republicans to make some changes.
You're exactly right. And we've heard Kevin McCarthy saying, you know, I want records from social media about suppressing Hunter Biden. We need that in full force. All right, coming up, test scores are slipping to the lowest level in decades. Who could have predicted that? But some school districts keep insisting on teaching gender and genitalia to second graders.
This is really depressing news. It's like the steepest drop in test scores in like 50 years or something like that. Holy shit.
It's going to get worse because these kids are still going to have a hard time catching up.
Yeah, right. You don't get that time back. 2 years gone.
It's worse with the little ones.
Yeah, exactly.
It's always worth it. With all of the effort I put in preparation,
can't develop their speech
me
and
feel
stuff.
Ready to take it on.
Right.
I feel the difference.
Yeah, if you don't have a good, every house needs a good foundation. If they don't have that foundation, all those kids in kindergarten through third grade that lost 2 years, that's it, man.
Yeah.
When they hit high school, they're gonna have a hard time.
Yeah, and a bunch of, I think I saw Julie Banderas sing. She was thinking about holding her kids back.
Now's the time to take control of your
Which is
pain.
like, that's not a great solution, but it's some kind of solution.
Yeah, you send them to one of those academies.
There's a good chance it can help you
Yeah.
too. Now I can focus on the ones I love.
It can be caught up if people are willing to put in the work, but they got to spend on their kids.
Do what I and hundreds
And
of
they got to
thousands of
pay.
Americans are
They
doing.
got to pay extra.
That's the harder part.
Yeah.
What do you
guys think should happen to these teachers that are sexualizing these
optimizing
kids?
your supply chain from port to door with innovative
sort of,
technology
like,
and flexible
gulag should they
solutions,
be
so
sent
you have the
to?
capacity,
Exactly.
scale, and employees to make you
I
more
think they should be
resilient.
hang in a row on gallows.
I served my
really
country
do.
as a U.S. Marine in Camp Lejeune in the
I mean,
70s. A few years ago,
To
I
a
was
certain
diagnosed with
extent,
cancer.
there's no punishment
Then I find
too
out the
harsh
water
for
we
the
used
like
every day at Camp Lejeune
pedos
might
of the
have
world.
caused the cancer.
If you were exposed to
I
the
definitely
toxic
think
water
we
at
should
Camp
keep
Lejeune and have
exposing
since
them.
suffered any of these serious health problems, call White Heart
it's
Legal
getting
right now.
crazy.
You and your
Publicly
family may be
shame
entitled
them.
to substantial compensation.
Call 1-800-691-2211. That's 1-800-691-2211.
Bathfitter doesn't just fit your bath. We fit your life. When you're tired of looking at your tired old bath, we fit your style.
It's funny. I got to talk to Crippy later. Darlene wants me to log on for the 5 so she can show Crippy her plants. She's so happy with her plants this year.
As little as a day.
Oh, cool.
When high quality is the
Very
only quality
cool.
that matters.
Yeah,
we fit
definitely.
your
She got
standards.
5 plants that survived that weren't male,
Bathfitter. It
and
just
all
fits.
5 plants are
Visit
budding up
bathfitter.com
nice.
to book your free
Very
consultation.
nice.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely have a crop this year.
Choosing Miracle-Ear was a great decision.
I think she's got 11 that are about 3 inches tall started in the tent.
Appointment and a certified
Nice.
hearing care professional
Nice.
evaluated my
Yeah, and you
hearing
guys are
loss and
outdoor,
helped me find
right?
the right device calibrated
Well,
to
we
my
are
unique hearing
for now, but
loss. I
now
enjoy
we're
every
setting up the indoor.
quiet
Okay.
ones.
We got a tent in there. I'm gonna pick up another tent. Plus, like Crippy said, we're gonna use the closet in there, so we'll have 3 different areas to grow the plants.
At Long John Silver's, our legendary lobster bites are back with the delicious vengeance. Prepared with herby, buttery goodness and fried to golden perfection, they're the
This way, the only weed we gotta buy from the dispensary is when we get the coupons.
Fish, yeah.
I'm here at home with Officers Martinez and Endicott. They tell me Simply Safe's advanced pro monitoring with video verification helps them get there lightning fast. It's unsurpassed protection for less than $1 a day. Only from Simply Safe.
Only at Vanguard, you're more than just an investor. You're an owner.
We got this, babe.
That means that your dreams are ours too.
I finally had a good night's sleep and finally woke up in 100%. And I actually got 45 minutes. Yeah, I got 45 minutes of walking in with my goddamn weighted gloves and my leg weights. So it's a good day. Good day.
Sure. I'm glad you're feeling better.
Every day.
Thank you.
Sleep makes all the difference, doesn't it?
We're on your corner and in your
well,
corner
I was on
every
so
step
many
of the way.
pills. I was on like
Because your
6
anything
40
is
milligram
our
oxys
everything.
Yeah.
plus three double Vicodins. I mean, I haven't been on it in 7 years, but that's because they legalized weed.
Yeah, right.
I had to smoke weed in 20
welcome
years.
back. Just yesterday, we discussed the devastating new data revealing the worst drop in math and reading scores in decades for fourth grade
This is
students.
the sorriest
And as
part.
we pointed out,
It really
instead
is.
of focusing on
It's a
core
tragedy.
curriculum, schools seem to be more focused on woke ideologies. The latest example in my state, New Jersey. The Mahwah Township Public Schools' new health curriculum is forcing children as young as 10 years old to learn about gender identity.
Graders.
Cheryl, I'm going to start with you on this one because we were talking a lot about the devastating test scores that have come out this week, showing that fourth graders their scores are the lowest it's been since 1990. And that's largely due to some of the COVID policies, the power wielded by the teachers unions. $200 billion were given to schools, and we have lost 2 decades worth of learning. But now they're saying that these fourth graders who aren't doing so well, as they go into 5th grade, what they really need to focusing on is being able to tell the difference between gender orientation and gender identity. Don't you think that maybe, I don't know, they should be focusing on reading and math?
I think we should get our $200 billion back is what I think. I mean, and then if you look into how they spent the money, it's really offensive. They started bringing up things about, look, this is a union, okay? The teachers union is a very powerful political entity. And they were trying to lobby for things, Medicare for all, the wealth tax ban on charter schools. They were weighing into all of this with our officials and that money, as well as buying a 7-figure ad buy to say how great they were as teachers, to what a great job they're doing with our students. And it's really unfortunate because the minute that most of the country began to open up, and now we know from the CDC that schools were safe probably in the fall of 2020. And they were not opened up because of this union. And they've become too political. Unfortunately, the politicians know it, and I've seen it play out right here in New York City. They know that they've got to get that teacher vote. And until that changes, I'm not sure that the power of the teachers union is going to fade anytime soon.
Well, Kaylee, if we were going to assign blame, if you look to the press secretary, she's actually saying it was the Trump administration. It's their fault that the students aren't doing so well right now.
I could not believe when I heard that, because it was her administration that called governors like DeSantis Neanderthals for wanting to open their states. And this was 2 years into the pandemic. Dr. Sapphire, to your credit, you have been on this from the very beginning as a medical professional, pointing out the harm to our nation's youth, the harm of these COVID policies when very few were not. You saw the science, and my former boss saw the science. He called for reopening schools in July at the podium. I issued several warnings, gave footnotes, gave facts. The American Academy of Pediatrics warned of morbidity and mortality if schools remain closed. 1/5 of child abuse cases reported in schools, 22 million school lunches reported in schools. The Trump administration said this from the podium back in July of 2020. And so for Karine Jean-Pierre to try to place blame, boy, you got 4 fingers pointing right back at you, because it's you guys who wanted to close the schools.
Well, that's right, Sean. And first of all, you and Rachel have kids every walk of life, different ages right now. But all across the country, you're seeing Fairfax County. They're saying kids can change their names and their genders without their parents' permission in school. You also have public or Pennsylvania Education Department who's saying, we should not be using biological pronouns.
One day your son comes home as your daughter.
They're faulty, and they're now having all these gender neutral ones. They want to introduce this as young as 2nd grade. Don't you think that this is going to confuse these young impressionable children?
Absolutely, it's going to confuse them. I mean, 2nd grade is not an age where you're talking about these topics with kids. And if you do talk about it, it's with parents at home in a very safe place. But we are probably old school. We think that our schools are to educate our kids, teach them how to read, teach them math maybe. That's not the philosophy any longer of schools. This is about a political ideology that needs to be fed to our young people, whether it's the fluidity of gender. We need to talk about.
Have to switch it up, guys. Have to switch it up. The bitch came out. She's trying to get out early today.
Oh, shit.
So I'm pleased
Yeah,
to
right.
announce
Everyone's
that
ready
on
to go
Friday,
home for the
September
weekend.
16th,
Picture how
Yeah.
tone deaf
Biden
she
will
is. She came
welcome
out in
South
red and
African
black and red
President
again.
Yeah,
She was
right.
fighting
Cyril
last night. She
Ramaphosa
came out in black
to
and
the White
red.
House.
Yeah, that's
The
weird.
leaders building on their productive call in April and the U.S. South Africa strategic
The South Africa
importance of our
Strategic
enduring
Partnership.
partnerships and discuss opportunities to deepen cooperation on trade and investment, infrastructure, climate and energy, and health. We look forward to a productive visit. President Biden's special envoy for the Horn of Africa, Ambassador Mike Hammer, will travel to Ethiopia starting this weekend to engage on the crisis in northern Ethiopia. Special Envoy Hammer will convey that
I'm
all
sorry, but I
parties should
think she's
halt
dumb as a
military
stump.
operations and engage
She
in
never has
peace
any
talks.
answers.
We condemn Eritrea's
We'll see if they
re-entry
even
into
let
the
anyone ask
conflict,
any
the
questions.
continuing
Yeah, that's true
TPLF
too.
offensive outside Tigray, and the
Come on,
Ethiopian
Peter
government's
Ducey.
airstrikes.
Oh, he's
There's
there.
no military solution to
Waiting.
the conflict. Prior to renewed hostilities, we were encouraged by 5 months of humanitarian truce and are now deeply concerned about the seizure of humanitarian assistance of military use. All parties should exercise restraint, and we urge de-escalation by all actors, particularly so that there can be a resumption of humanitarian relief and basic services to all parties in need. Last but not least, I also wanted to share some very sad news to report for the press team. This is the final day of our good friend and invaluable colleague, Alexandra Lamana's detail with us. As you know, we have rotating details from different agencies. Alexandra succeeded Brittany Kaplan at a pivotal time, coming to us from Treasury and taking the lead for the press team on our response to the Supreme Court, overturning Roe v. Wade, as well as the ensuing attacks on women's
Blah, 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 blah.
rights from elected Republicans in Congress.
We're
also
thanking
all over
people,
the country.
random ass people.
Her expertise on economic issues has also
Yeah,
been
that's what's important.
for
On
us
economic
in the
issues,
press
her
office.
expertise.
We're going to miss her talent, her sense
Her
of
smartness.
strategy.
Was you about to say her smartness?
Yeah, right.
Her work ethic,
What did she start
which
to
speaks
say?
to how lucky we have been to
Yeah,
have
no,
her
Treasury
as
loaned us somebody. That person's going back to the
Okay,
Treasury
with that,
Department. So
wanna
here's a
take us away?
5-minute speech about that.
Exactly. Major news about nothing.
Yesterday's speech.
Said, quote, we've offered
Yeah.
every single thing available to Mississippi, and the governor has to act.
Wow, they didn't even ask about
Can you
yesterday. Ask
elaborate
about
on that a
Mississippi.
little bit? What does the president think Governor Reeves has to do now that he has not yet done regarding the crisis?
So let me just say a couple of things to give you all an update. So FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell is in Jackson, Mississippi today to assess the ongoing emergency response operations. She will be joined by Infrastructure Coordinator Mitch Landrieu and other federal officials. I know she will be providing an update from the ground a little bit later today. FEMA, EPA, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers continue to deploy personnel to support the state's emergency response and identify longer-term solutions to improve the infrastructure. As far as water distribution goes, I know some folks had questions about that. FEMA has a number of personnel on site in the State Emergency Operations Center and is coordinating with the Mississippi Emergency Management Team to ensure that everyone has access to water. As you know, the president took immediate action to approve the governor's emergency declaration request and directed his team to surge assistance to Mississippi. The president and the vice president both spoke with the mayor of Jackson this week, and that's the update of where we are. Again, we are determined to continue to provide all of the needed assistance for the people of the state of Mississippi and specifically for the people of Jackson as they go through this really tough time on the ground. So we're going to continue to do the work.
But what did he mean by saying the governor has to act? And so he issued the emergency declaration, obviously, but what more should Governor Reeves be doing that the White House clearly thinks he's
Well, look, I mean, as you know, there's funding that we've provided through the American Rescue Plan for upgrades across the state, which is about $450 million. The city has allocated $20 million, pardon me, of its ARP funds for water and sewer infrastructure needs, and there is about $30.9 million through the EPA's revolving loan funds for treatment and distribution system improvements for Jackson available right now. So the state has the $75 million this year through the bipartisan infrastructure law to provide clean and safe water this year, with a total of $429 million available to the state over the next 5 years. So we're looking across the federal government to see what else we can do. But again, this administration, we're committed. The emergency that we're currently seeing.
I swear to God, when she talks, all I do is daydream. I can't get interested in her.
Yeah,
emergency.
She's just reading, of course. And when people are just reading remarks that they haven't practiced, they tend to really flatten their tone of voice and lose all their inflection and stuff. That's what happens. She starts droning on, and then it sounds like the Charlie Brown school teacher.
Thank you. Yes.
And you just tune it out naturally. You have to work to, public speaking 101 lesson coming up. You have to work to add inflection to your voice.
Exactly.
It's up and down, and it's interesting and engaging and popping and whatever. She doesn't do that because she's just reading. There was a tree in the yard. It's like,
I mean, look,
it's been 20 years, but I remember my speech class.
Right, exactly. These are right. We're talking about like high school education skills here that she does not possess.
She needs one of
conversations are happening. There's communication, as you mentioned.
Voice box goes up, the machines
Governor did ask
out loud.
Federal assistant took the official step doing the declaration, and we responded. We surged.
They're programming AI voices like Siri and stuff to be able to have inflection, and they sound better than KJP does right now
because of the urgent need that they have. And we'll keep you abreast if there's any conversation that is coming in the upcoming days, or that may be happening. But we'll hear from FEMA administrator later today. But right now, as you just stated, there's just have not been a call.
That's one of their parlor tricks.
Last night argued very forcefully that democracy is under assault. But
here we
what
go.
kind of concrete actions does he actually plan to take, given that he described this essentially as a fairly existential threat to the American Republic?
So, as you also heard from the president yesterday, he believes we're at an inflection point. And so that's an important.
Yes, we are. Wrong direction, though.
He gave that speech, but you also heard the president express optimism, right, about the future.
I didn't hear any.
Well, where was the optimism?
Yeah, right.
To the American
We're just
people.
rewriting history now from a day ago.
Nothing we can.
Exactly.
We can't do anything. As a country. And then we've seen throughout our history, America has made its greatest progress out of the darkest times. We see that before. One way, of course, we can do that is by making our voices heard. And he said that. He said that the American people have a choice. But it wasn't just a policy speech. Obviously, the president believes that we can make great progress out of the darkest moments. And he calls on all Americans, regardless of which side of the aisle you sit on, regardless which ideology that you may follow, regardless of the political persuasion, to unite around democracy. And he thought it was an important message, again, an inflection point, and that was the message that he delivered. Again, giving people a choice and saying the same thing over and over, like saying nothing. Bro. Oh my God,
it is.
I think their voices heard. The president has no plan to confront this threat that he described very forcefully last night.
I mean, it's not the first time he's confronted.
If you have nothing to say, you try and baffle him with the bull crap.
He's done it multiple times at multiple stages during the last 3 years, during his campaign, a couple times as well during his administration, and he'll continue to lift that up when he.
Could you imagine a press secretary changing what Trump's speech was? They'd be gone the next day.
Was steadfast.
Yeah, right. Trump would not appreciate that for sure.
To the American people.
Actually, Biden got pissed in the beginning. I remember him saying some stuff about don't put words in my mouth.
That was a leak. There was a leak that Biden was frustrated that his handlers keep trying to walk back things that he says.
American history.
It's like, well, yeah, I guess that would be frustrating.
Actually can change the direction of a country. So I would.
But they're only trying to prevent World War III. That's all.
Yeah, exactly right. But maybe you should stop stepping in shit every time you open your mouth, Joe.
Oh my God, yes.
Questions about why the president delivered what sounded very much like a politically charged speech.
I'm going to be 63. He's almost 80. I know how I ramble. I feel sorry for him. I don't think he knows half the stuff that's going on.
I'll take your first question.
Chuck Grassley is older than he is, and Chuck Grassley can stay on topic.
Let me see what they're saying, because she's responding. He's asking about, hold on. He's asking about, no, you're good, hold on.
Defending rights.
Because yesterday she said, "Oh no, he's not going to do any of this," and he's
making
basically did. So now he's putting her on the spot.
The nation is not political. We don't call any of that political.
Oh, that's not political because you call it.
Oh God!
Presidential. To your question about the Marines, look, the president gave an important speech last night, a critical speech, and an added inflection point. And
again, the same thing, added inflection point.
Our values. Our values.
That's the talking point.
Our men and women who protect us.
You're going to hear it on MSNBC all day now. We're at an inflection point.
Even as well. The presence of the Marines at the speech was intended to demonstrate the deep and abiding respect the president has for these services.
Yeah, that's why he pulled out of Afghanistan the way he did.
No shit.
Well, do you guys remember "Clap for that, you stupid bastards"? He at one point said that to a crowd full of military people. Yeah, the utmost respect.
And it is not abnormal. It is actually normal for presidents from either side of the aisle to give speeches in front of members of the military, and including President Ronald Reagan, President George H.W. Bush. It is not an unusual sight.
It is unusual given the content of this speech.
Exactly.
You asked 3 questions. No, you've asked 3 questions. I did. No, I answered the question.
You don't answer shit.
No take
backs. A
backs.
little bit more, but I
Look at how she gets.
because I said making your voices heard is a powerful tool. I answered it the first time you asked. I'm gonna go around.
Oh, thanks so much, Corinne. Just on the Treasury Department's oil price.
Oh my God!
Nobody cares about the Treasury Department.
World leaders to jump on this Russian oil price cap policy.
So let me just give you a couple things at the top, because this is a really important first step. And so we are moving from exploring a price cap on Russia oil to gaining an agreement with G7 nations, making up 50% of the global economy, to implement one. A global price cap will help us accomplish our 2 goals. The first one is significantly reduce Putin's biggest source of revenue for his war chest. Number 2, ensure that oil continues to flow into the market at lower prices and supply meets demand. The impact of our efforts to implement—
Open up our spigots. It's that easy.
Reports show that Russia is already offering steep discounts, as much as 30%, and long-term contracts to some.
Yeah, because oil is up 100%.
Russia is planning to continue supplying its oil and willing to swallow bigger discounts. A price cap will give more countries better leverage to strike bargain with deals with Russia. We will further work in the upcoming weeks.
They would have to cap it at $60 a barrel.
Release further information, including technical guidance for market participation, and announce our coalition partners as well. A price cap on Russian oil.
I think $60 around that was the breaking even point for Russia.
In our agenda to
Russia can't handle it getting too low.
In a way that
if we really wanted to hurt Russia, we would produce more gas.
Oh yeah.
To implement this policy in a way that achieves those goals. We're going
to bring a barrel of oil back down to $35 like Trump had it.
A very big
and we will not see any more aggression from Russia. That is
no, it'll shut right down.
The U.S. Treasury is leading.
Is the president himself going to ask world leaders to sign on to this?
Well, here's the thing. The president started this conversation, as you know, in Europe when we were in Germany at the G7. So this is part of the president's leadership. He moved this forward. He started this conversation. Now the the Treasury and our administration is going to continue to have those conversations. We'll have more. Clearly, we always share more. If the president's going to put out a statement, we'll let you know.
Where does the president think the line should be drawn for having members of the military who could be perceived as being part of stagecraft for an address? The former president was criticized for using military many different times in many different settings. And you're right, there have been other instances and other presidents where members of the military, especially here at the White House, but to be at a location in Pennsylvania where the Marines are not normally stationed, where does the president see the line for having members of the military included?
So I just want to be very clear. As you know, the president was at.
That'd be a change.
And you know the history. I'm just going to repeat it, but I know you know the history, which is where some of the documents of some of our most critical rights and freedoms were debated and were drafted. And so being at Independence Hall for this president, and you follow this president, you know how he thinks, and you know how.
Unfortunately, we do.
As an elected official, he believes that is important for him to speak very loudly, to have actually the loudest voice when it comes to our democracy. And so for him, this was not a political speech. This was an opportunity in prime time to talk.
It was 100% political speech.
Be very clear with a clear voice to talk about what is happening in our country today. And it was about our values as a country, about our democracy as a country. And so that is what the president wanted to convey. And he believes the men and women who wear the uniform and protect us every day, protect this country every day, that's what they fight for as well. And so this was an opportunity as he's having this conversation.
Yeah, but when Trump had military, with one of his speeches, they all went off the rails.
Yep. That was sort of the point. They were trying to get, she seemed to just be trying to get them to walk it back and say, oh yeah, we shouldn't use military. And KJP is just sort of floundering now.
Yep.
Again, what else is new?
Exactly.
As I mentioned, for years, he has seen where we.
Well, her usefulness is going to be ending soon, so we'll see who he puts in there next.
Yeah, I would give her, I'd probably give her till the midterms, and then I think they make another change.
Yeah, that's about right.
Understanding that the Marines,
especially if they lose big, they say they're going to need a better press secretary.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, as well, who fight for it every day. So that's the thinking that I can give you behind that.
On the Mississippi issue, briefly, and just following up on this, is there some tension between
any thinking
and Governor Reeves? Because this is obviously an ongoing health concern, day-to-day lifestyle concern, a real crisis for people in Mississippi. And the president seemed to be pointed in his comments. There hasn't been leader-to-leader direct communication. Is something getting in the way of president and the governor speaking to each other, and is that necessary to further any assistance or progress on this issue?
I mean, look, it's not necessary to further any progress in this situation. FEMA director is on the ground today, who is part of the agencies that, if anything, leads the effort when it comes to natural disasters that we're seeing. In this case, it is an infrastructure issue that we're seeing in Jackson, Mississippi, and we're also going to have EPA officials on the ground as well. So it's not necessary to have a leader conversation.
What the hell are they going to do to clean up groundwater?
Do its job because of
give everybody filters.
That's a really complicated problem. That's a problem throughout the industrialized world. China's having a huge problem with that now.
Are they?
Contamination of their groundwater. Yeah, it's a big problem. We're just so lucky to have so much fresh water supplies in the United States. Obviously, some states are having a drought, but most states are pretty well taken care of.
Read out to you at this time, I can tell you that
they got to figure out a way to use seawater.
Yeah, they are. My little brother's actually working at a research lab that's doing some desalination research. That is definitely the way we solve the problem for sure.
Exactly.
We have
that also you can take what's called brackish water, which is salt water in the groundwater.
Yeah,
you can refine that too.
We believe start the process of really dealing with an infrastructure issue.
When the price of water gets too high, that's when you'll see it.
Yep, exactly.
Everything has to deal with money.
And they'll keep developing more efficient ways to do it. It'll happen someday.
Clean, safe drinking water. So that work is going to continue regardless if there is a call or not. Because the president, he says this all the time. You've heard him say this. He's the president for all Americans, and he's going to make sure that we do everything that we can.
That's why he calls the MAGA crowd bad, huh?
Yeah, right.
All the Americans except MAGA crowd.
Jackson, and then also just
so bizarre.
Yesterday, first with Jackson. So
I think they honestly don't consider people who are MAGA part of this country.
It seems like it. It seems like they're trying to go in that direction.
Hey, I can't believe they shut a president out. They took away all his media. That's unheard of.
Yeah. Not those applications were blocked or just asked why.
They try to make it like Trump was never there.
I'll say this. That is a question for FEMA. The FEMA director is going to be on the ground today, and I'm sure those many conversations will come up about ways that we can help the city of Jackson. You all going to hear from her directly today. So I will leave it to her to answer that specific question, because you're asking about a specific program that I clearly don't have any information on it at this time.
Sure. She knows.
The FEMA director, Director Criswell, is very good at her job. We have seen what she's been able to make happen. And so we have confidence that she will get to the bottom and be as helpful as she can be, as we can be on the ground.
More broadly, just these smaller, poorer communities tend to not be able to hire the staff, don't have the infrastructure to actually navigate through this climate resilience system and get federal funding often. Years show this, when you go back and look at reporting as well. So I wonder what actual kind of stick does the administration have to, since so much of the power is with the states, that this funding actually gets to communities that need it.
So I spoke to this a little bit yesterday, and I'll talk about it now. We have put a real emphasis on making it easier for state and local government to access the federal savings, because when we talk about the president's economic plan, when we talk about lifting people from the bottom up and out, it has that in the middle of it, equity. And you saw that in his response to his COVID response, making sure that equity was at the center of that. And everything that you see from the American Rescue Plan, from the bipartisan infrastructure law, for everything that we have dealt with as we talk about the economy, we want to make sure we do not leave anybody behind. And so one of the reasons we've asked every state to appoint a state infrastructure coordinator to help streamline communications and information flow. So one of the other administration officials who's on the ground is Mitch Landrieu, who runs that team. And so he'll be on the ground, he'll be having those conversations. And so having that coordinator is incredibly important as we engage directly with, again, state, local governments and tribal governments as well, to help them quickly access the necessary technical assistance and capacity to underserved communities.
She caught herself like in the government, the tribal governments.
That's another way we have found a way to assist communities in accessing and deploying these federal infrastructure funding, including
more funding was stolen than was ever given out.
Collective Ford Foundation.
Seems like it.
So many more people that we are partnering with, so that folks in underserved communities could get that funding. So our goal, again, is to help local, state, tribal, and territorial governments navigate and access and deploy infrastructure resources that will build a better community and a better America. So again, there's a coordinator that is connected to getting that.
Thousands of phony businesses got that PPP money.
Hear from Mitch Landrieu. You're going to hear from Criswell.
People buying mansions.
Yeah.
today, and we will hear a lot more on what we can do as
BLM, buy large mansions.
On the speech yesterday, just to follow up on this point, noting that rhetoric and delivering speeches can, I understand the kind of inspirational kind of motivation factor there, but just frankly, can the American people expect any sort of policy rollout underlying the speech yesterday in the days ahead to actually address the threat to democracy?
Look, I think what the president was trying to do at this moment, and we've seen this before, is give Americans a choice. How do we move forward in this time, in this inflection point?
Without you.
And one of the ways that we have seen time and time again in history is making sure people have their voices heard. And that comes in many different ways. And he believes, as president, it is important for him to be very clear and direct and to fight the hardest for our democracy. And so that is what you saw. You saw a very strong message from the president. It was clear what he was saying to the American people. It's time to take a stance. It's time to take action. And we also see that. We see that from polling about what the American people are anxious about, what they care about is our democracy. So it is not unusual. It is something that we have seen over the last several weeks. And so, the president's going to continue to have those conversations, and he's going to continue to make sure that he makes that clear.
Well, what's the administration's action besides telling people to go vote?
Well, I think we should not underestimate what that can do. The power of the bully pulpit, the power of the president, and that action that he took last night, and what that could make happen, what that could lead to.
All about power.
We've seen that in the past. This is not unusual.
Clearly,
to have a speech like this, and to encourage people to act, to send a message, so that so that the American people understand what is happening in this country. And so again, the presidency believes that it is his job to level with the American people about threats he sees to our nation and our values. And that's what you heard from him last night. And we believe it indeed resonated. And so again, this is something that he's going to continue to do. It is a powerful message that was delivered by the president. I'm going to continue. Go ahead, Joey.
Yeah, thank you, Corinne. Isn't the speech in which the president concludes by saying vote, vote, vote inherently political? He wasn't referring to voting for any candidates. He wasn't saying vote for Dr. Oz. He was saying vote to reject the MAGA forces. I mean, isn't that a political speech?
What?
Thank you.
Yesterday, I actually said that he
one of two based reporters.
I hear that.
To make your voices heard. I said that at the podium yesterday when I was asked what this speech was going to be all about. And look, that is the most powerful tool. The most powerful tool that Americans have.
Vote against MAGA, but it's not a political speech. I don't get it.
Yeah.
They think everyone is dumb as a stump.
An American.
Well, do you blame them? A lot of people are nowadays.
Well, yeah, and like I said, 20% of the population eats this stuff up no matter what.
Question a few times.
Exactly.
Okay, go to a different topic.
Looking ahead to the Labor Day events that the president has, one in Pittsburgh, one in Milwaukee. Will the president be speaking at those events? And is he going to be continuing the message we heard yesterday, or talking more of an economic theme? What should we expect from the president on those days? And will he be appearing with the respective Senate candidates, Fetterman and Mandela Barnes in Wisconsin?
So I don't want to get ahead of what the president's going to say. As you just mentioned, he'll be in Wisconsin and in Pennsylvania on Monday. For the Labor Day activities that he'll be participating in. I'm sure we will be hearing from the president. Don't want to get ahead of what he will say. And we'll have more to share on who.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to do that, would we?
I don't have anything to share at this time. Okay, go ahead.
Hey, great. Yeah, thank you.
We don't want to say what he's going to say because we don't know what he's going to say.
Talking points over flagging what the president describes as misinformation.
Say that one more time.
Has the administration helped Twitter and Facebook with talking points about what the administration believes is misinformation, or how much coordination is there between the administration and social media companies?
So
You can't ask that
I don't have
question.
anything to share with you on that.
Say,
I'm not gonna do it right this time.
The attorney generals from Missouri and Louisiana said there's a vast censorship enterprise across a multitude of federal agencies.
Yeah, I'm just not going to comment at this time.
Another topic then. So under this president, under President Biden, you saw two.
I'm not going to comment on what we're busted on.
Yeah.
Has gone the wrong direction. Workers' real wages have come down. We're seeing programs, spending on programs, and promises that at some point in the future the transition will be over. What in the last 20 months? Where's the progress?
So as far as the economy, as you know, the jobs report came out today. You heard from the president as he was giving remarks at his event just now on the American Rescue Plan, the Build Back Better challenge, dealing with 21 cities. And you heard from some of the folks who received the grant today, which is an important tool and it's going to change lives in Detroit, in Greenwood, Oklahoma, in areas that really need it. And so that is, again, another important piece of the American Rescue Plan that only Democrats voted for. And also the American Rescue Plan helped turn the economy back on. And that's why we have seen the success of of our economic success this past year. And you've asked me this, I know you follow economy, but look,
wages.
Well, here, let me talk about the report a little bit because there's some good stuff in here that kind of touches on what you just asked me. So as you know, the good news is in August, the economy created 315,000 jobs, which is important. We have created nearly 10,000 million jobs since President Biden took office, which is the fastest job growth in history. So you're asking me, where's the success? Here it is. Wait, let me finish. Wait, hold on. Let me. The share of Americans who are working, because
Man, can I have a moment where I feel good that I shut somebody up?
Guys, this is about me.
Went up, and that's important. And for the first time, working age women, this is in the job report that we just saw today, are now back at work at rates not seen since before the pandemic. So the bottom line is jobs are up, wages are up, people are back to work, and we are seeing some hopeful signs that inflation may be beginning to ease. We saw that in July, right?
Maybe beginning to
we
ease.
saw that inflation was starting to ease.
And
you're
it
talking
wasn't
about
easy.
education.
It's about a year and a half.
When the president walked into this administration, schools were closed, businesses were closed. And a lot of that is because we were in the pandemic, but not just that, it was so mismanaged by the last administration that we had to get to work to make sure that we opened up the schools, which we were able to do. Nearly all schools were opened in the first 6 months, getting small businesses back open. And that was the work that was the work because of this president and Democrats. The American Rescue Plan helped do that. And it was mismanaged, what we saw by the last president. The way that he was handling the economy, the way they were handling COVID and getting shots in arms, making sure that people were able to get back to work. That is just a fact. And so that is there more work to be done? Of course, to bring down inflation? Absolutely. That's one of the reasons the president worked so hard to get the gas prices to come down. That's one of the reasons we worked so hard to get the Inflation Reduction Act so we can bring down cost of prescription drugs. So all of these things took work and it took leadership. All right, I'm going to keep going. Go ahead.
Thanks. Greg, can you talk a little bit more about COVID, particularly what the White House is doing to make sure that Congress passes the COVID funding package, considering last time it didn't work out?
So as you know, there remains a pressing need for additional funding for our COVID-19 response. In March, to your point, we requested that Congress provide supplemental COVID-19 funding and repeatedly warned that without congressional action, we would be forced to make difficult trade-offs and reallocate existing funding to meet pressing needs. That is precisely what happened the most recently. For example, because of congressional inaction, the lack of additional funding has prevented us from adequately replenishing our national stockpile. at home. The tests, which at home tests, which ends today, force us to suspend sending a free test to Americans and leaves our domestic testing capacity diminished for a potential fall surge. So while we have made tremendous progress in our ability to protect against and treat COVID-19, we must stay on our front foot, and that requires additional resources. So the updating funding request is for $22.4 billion to meet immediate short-term domestic needs, including testing, accelerating the research and development of next-generation vaccines and therapeutics, prepare for future variants, and support the global response to COVID-19. So again, this funding is vital. We're going to continue to work with Congress. We feel that we have some time to make that happen. And so that is, in order to continue our progress and build on our progress, we're going to continue to fight for that funding.
That the White House is kind of doing differently to try to kind of change the outcome? I mean, what makes you think that there will be a different outcome?
So we think that we think that there is, like last year, we were confident that Congress can reach a funding agreement, just like we did last year. So this is not new. And but with 1 month until the end of the fiscal year, it's clear that Congress will first need to pass a short-term continuing resolution to keep the federal government running and provide.
No way, we're back on this merry-go-round.
On a full
The
year
continuing resolution funding battles. Holy shit, man! Didn't we like just pass a budget at the end of last?
There's a report that Gina McCarthy, the president's climate advisor, is stepping down. Is there anything we can tell us about that?
Yes, she is stepping down. Gina is indeed leaving us. She, as you know, has been a leader in what we have seen as one of the largest investment in dealing with climate change. She is not the first time that she's been in an administration, and we are very sad to lose her. We will have more to share, I'm sure, in the upcoming hours. But just to give a little bit of Gina, she's a public service, has extended decades across local and state and federal government, including as EPA administrator in the Obama-Biden administration. And she returned to public service, recognizing the unique moment and eager to support the president at the beginning of this administration, especially as she sought to launch the first ever Climate Policy Office and 21 plus agency task force to advance a whole of government approach to the climate crisis. And so we'll have more to share, but yes, that is something that I can confirm.
I'll ask you about something else. Yesterday, the Defense Department released a pretty disturbing report on the number of sexual assault incidents in the military. This report indicated an increase in particularly female service members who said that they experienced an unwanted sexual contact, and a decrease in the women who say that they trust the system to protect their privacy, trust the system to ensure their safety, and trust the system to treat them with dignity and respect. Has the president been presented with this report, and does he have confidence in the Defense Department's leadership to address these concerns?
So I can tell you that the president, this is a priority for the president. As you know, you've heard from him about this before. One sexual assault is one too many. And the president has been clear about making sure we implement real change to rid our ranks of this crime. That is why he signed an executive order in January 2022, making sexual harassment a named military offense. And it's why his fiscal year 23 budget request proposed $940 million for sexual assault prevention and response programs, including $479 million and more than 2,400 personnel to implement the recommendations of the Independent Review Commission. And for the first time in military history, beginning in December of next year, investigations and prosecutions of sexual assault and harassment will be taken out of the chain of command and placed in the hands of the Independent Special Counsel. We understand there's more work to do, of course, as this new data demonstrates, but addressing the scourge of sexual assault in the military will continue to be a priority for the Department of Defense and this administration. We're going to continue to do the work. I'm going to take one more question because we actually have to go.
I just wanted to follow up on the oil price cap. Could you say when that will be unveiled?
So I can say this, we believe the price cap will be successful. in our goals of substantially curbing Russia's main source of revenue and lowering energy costs because it offers multiple ways to achieve our goals. As far as any timing or timeline, as I said moments ago, that the U.S. Treasury will have more on that, so I point you to them. But we do believe this is an important big step forward.
Quickly on the Iran deal, are the main sticking points the closure of the IAEA probe and some kind of guarantees for foreign companies that if the U.S. were to leave the deal again, there would be like a wind down period for contracts?
So let me just give you a little bit on the status of this. We have taken deliberate and principled approach to these negotiations from the start. If Iran is prepared to comply with its commitments under the 2015 deal, then we are prepared to do the same. That's going to be our focus as it relates to the IAEA investigations, the safeguards. Our position is crystal clear. Iran needs to answer. It's crystal clear. The investigations are not political. They are not leverage or bargaining chips. Once the IAEA Director General reports to the Board of Governors that the outstanding issues have been clarified and resolved, we expect them to come off the board's agenda and not before. We are unbending in our support for the IAEA's independence. There should not be any conditionality between re-implementation of the JCPOA and investigations related to Iran's legal obligations under the Non-Proliferation Treaty. And of course, it would be preferable to return to the JCPOA without any open safeguard issues. The power to achieve that is fully in Iran's hands. I'll take one from the back. I'm not sure if I have any more on Ethiopia.
Oh my God.
Biden laid out last night the problems that the country's facing, divisions, extremism, polarization. What is his message to adversaries around the world who are looking at this and trying to leverage the division in the country, and also allies who are dismayed at the state of democracy in the U.S.?
So it's the same message he has sent to the world since before January 6th about sacrosanct democratic norms and the importance of standing up for democracy as authoritarianism rises around the world. And so the same message, nothing is new. This is opposite of partisan and about values, much bigger, much higher than that. And that's him working to strengthen democracy in the world. That's what he's going to continue to do. Thanks, everybody.
Oh my God!
I gotta go back.
What a disaster! What a disaster!
She ran off like an idiot. Hey guys, I'm gonna pick up some food. What happened?
For sure. Well, no, she just really couldn't take any heat. The simple questions that we were all asking, she just couldn't handle. Classic. Totally
she could
classic.
Never fucking do it. She just wanted to get it out of the way before 1 o'clock so she could fucking ride out.
For sure.
Crazy shit. I'm gonna holler at you later for the
all right,
5.
Peace,
all
man.
right.
See ya.
See you guys. Peace out, everybody. Later. Take care, chat.